We're starting our roundtable. This is a new genre to our congresses, and the idea of a roundtable is a little bit to change the positions and to change another way to exchange the ideas. So usually when we do teachings at the lectures, at the practices, we have a process of a teacher teaching the audience, the students, and at the round table we try to have the situation when the honorary teachers are communicating between themselves. Yeah? So we have this horizontal speech. Today we will also do this, and the topic is Vairāgya, and we will specify the question, and the question was more going into this problem, like the intellectual problem. When we look at the Yoga Sutras, one can say, but this is arguable, of course, that Vairāgya is a practice, a detachment, a practice of ascetic practice, so to say, but at the same time we see that yogic activities and yogic people, so to say, are more alive, they are emotional, they have a strong will of life, they actively participate in the society. So this modern movements in yoga bring questions. How can Vairāgya be practiced in the modern world? Yeah, so this is our main question for today. But usually I start with the small questions before we go into the big ones. And just to start off the conversation, I will have just a few questions for the teachers, and this will be the same question for all the teachers, and we will see the difference, or we will see what they will answer, of course. But it would be nice to see different opinions on the same question. Yeah? And the second stage would be when the teachers could ask each other questions or comment on what has been said. And the third stage would be the stage, time when you can ask questions to the teachers and they will answer in their way, yeah, to these questions. So actually, to start off this conversation, I wanted to clarify with the teachers, how would you translate Vairāgya? What word can you use for that? Because usually the word detachment is used, but you can also find, even in academic literature, the word, is that better with the microphone? The word dispassion, freedom of attachments. I mean, there are some ways how this word could be translated. And of course, we could go from the dictionary, we can go from the root, Sanskritic root, but I would like to ask you first, before we go and we talk about Vairāgya, to have your opinion on how this word should be translated into English. You can use a couple of words, of course, to describe your opinion, and also some argumentation why that would be the best way to translate it.
Start with me?
Sure.
Swami Vivekananda translated it as non-attachment. So that's a very good translation, practical. Literally, if you look at Vairāgya, Raga, one meaning would be to color. Our mind is colored. Vairāgya is to remove that coloring. A further development would be to rise above strong likes and dislikes. So Raga is an attraction, like, but it also implies Dvesha, which means strong aversions. So to transcend strong likes and aversions, attachments and aversions, that would be Vairāgya.
Thank you. Okay.
Thank you for this question. I think the translation that we choose also is like a philosophical statement in itself. So that reveals where we are coming from to this concept. I also agree on the translation of non-attachment in general. Detachment works as well, really well, and if I think of Finnish language, which is my native language, I could probably use irtipäästäminen, which means roughly letting go. So that would be my choice.
Thank you.
Again, thanks for this question, because you know the translation is again dependent on how you apply it, because basically you have two versions of, or three versions of Vairāgya, which is one of the practical ones. Every one of us has a little bit of Vairāgya. I'm in a dispassionate state, or I detach from this and that, even everyday life. Then you have the strong detachment, which is what is defined in the Yoga Sutras, where you became dispassionate. You are not interested in things which for other people would be very interesting, because you conserve your energies and your whole mind set to a different areas. And then there is the third interpretation, which is not really a third in terms of finding an appropriate word, but you know there is this concept of Ritambhara in the Yoga Sutras, which can be loosely translated as the universal flow of information, or the field of information, which is always carrying all the necessary answers to every question. And in that way you have to detach yourself of every construct which is happening in your mind, and just let that happen which is coming from this Ritambhara, or this, let's call it, universal information field. So in all cases I think this detachment is a key word, because you just detach yourself from what the mind would otherwise produce, and just let the flow solve the problem through you if it is needed. So I would think that detachment would be a nice way how to express it.
Thank you.
Personally, I don't think detachment can be practiced. I believe it is more like an experience, a gift that is given at times to any one of us. And most of the time, life itself is the power that acts to make us realize how petty our desires, how petty our fears, how petty our mental constructs. So if you have the chance to have this experience, this gift given to you, you don't care about translation. If you want to know what Vairāgya means, use the word Vairāgya. That's it.
Okay, this is getting interesting, because from what I hear from you, we can say that, and please comment on what I'm saying, we can definitely say that in some cases Vairāgya is a state, in some cases it's a gift, in some cases it's a process. Yeah. So we have a nice situation where we're having a little, different directions or different views, angles at which, from which we can look at Vairāgya. So could we follow on that? So, for example, for you, Swami, is it the process, or could it be also the state, or also it would be interesting, because if, for example, Francois defines Vairāgya as a gift, then you don't really need to have any effort, from what I understand. It's something that you're given, and maybe you can comment on that. Or, so is it, where is the practice comes in? Yeah? Where does the practice comes into it? Do we as the practitioners need to do some effort to achieve Vairāgya if it's a state? Or Vairāgya is a process, a constant process. Or maybe something else that I'm missing.
I think all of those have truth in them. You can practice Vairāgya. It could be artificial, mechanical, but you can still practice it. One can formally become a monk or a hermit and stay in top of a mountain and beg for food, have no possessions. Or even living in the world, minimize one's requirements, simple living, high thinking. That's Vairāgya. It's a practice. It's also a process of evolution. When we move from petty desires to a more noble state of living, that process itself is Vairāgya. It is also a state of renunciation. It's also a paradigm, a entirely new way of looking at life. Let me explain this. If you contrast religion and spirituality, or you can contrast the lower religion and the higher religion, whichever language we want to use, we are all spiritual seekers here. And the way I contrast religion and spirituality would be like this. My God for my life is religion. My life for God is spirituality. Like when we use God as a convenience, like a washing machine or a Wi-Fi, that's a convenience for my life. It's good for my life. I mean, it makes my life easier, more fun. If I use God like that God makes my life better, so I have a little religion in my life. That's conventional religion, and that's most of religion actually across the world. But there is the higher religion, the religion of the saints, the religion of the mystics, the religion of spiritual seekers, and that is my life for God. My whole life, the point of it becomes God realization, self-realization, whatever you call it. And this transition is Vairāgya. It's a new paradigm. My life for God would be Vairāgya. It's a new paradigm of looking at life.
So the change of paradigm would be the Vairāgya.
No, it's the new paradigm. And the change, of course. And then I'm giving up the old paradigm.
Yeah.
That does not appeal to me anymore. I realize the futility of that. And I realize true fulfillment lies in spiritual realization, God realization, self, whatever you call it. And that one is made possible by Vairāgya. That is the new paradigm. That paradigm itself can be called Vairāgya.
Thank you. Very interesting. Yes, Matti?
I'd like to pick up on what Francois said about that Vairāgya is a gift and that the acting or the agent of Vairāgya is the world surrounding us. I agree completely with this. I have sometimes used the term Vairāgya machine for this world that we live in, because everything in our lives is temporary. Everything we try to attach ourselves to or try to hold on to, we will have to let go of at some point. So Vairāgya is letting go of things. We cannot escape it. But when we are speaking of Vairāgya in connection to yoga, I think there needs to be an intention. We need to intently let go and take the opportunities that life presents us to let go of things, to make use of them intentionally. And for example, in commentaries of the Yoga Sutra, Vijnana Bhiksu, for example, he describes several levels of Vairāgya. So I think it's a process, although the opportunities to practice it also come from the outside.
Okay, thank you. Vairāgya is becoming existential experience. Yes? Yes, sir?
Thank you. You see, again, we are, if somebody mentioned the change of paradigm or a new paradigm, but the Vairāgya can be really absolute only in case of what is called the manonasa, which means the annihilation of the minds. Okay, but how can you survive without a mind? Well, again, it is the absolute flow of information, the universal flow of information, which is actually containing all the responses you need to have, but it's not your response. So that as long as I'm practicing Vairāgya or experiencing Vairāgya, it's still relative. The absolute becomes when you yourself do not identify as an individual separate from the others. And then, then really the Vairagya comes naturally because you have no individuality which would attach to anything, which is the utmost, well, the ultimate Vairagya, I think.
Are you, am I understanding it correctly? Are you moving towards Buddhism or Vedanta in this dissolvement?
Well, it is more of a pedantic type, but specifically, you know, I think the terms which I was using are not really embedded in any specific grand lines. For example, I would be happy if Swamiji would comment on this term of manonasa, or actually on the state where the individual no longer experiences itself as a separate unity. In that case, of course, you have to do the Vairagya. You have to be the state of the Vairagya because there is no one to attach itself to anyone or anything. So then it comes natural, then it's a natural gift, as we have heard from us.
Thank you, Geza.
From what I have understood, no effort is required in life because life is stronger than any one of us, and life takes us where she or it or he wants to take us. So anybody who wants to make effort to loosen the grip of thirst, of desire, is contradictory because it is creating a new movement of desire, the one of desirelessness. So it is contradictory. So the only thing you can do is just to say yes to what happens, because it does not belong to you to decide what is going to happen, nor does it belong to you what has happened. So therefore, I don't believe that Yoga Sutra is a manual. I think it is the description that life can bring to human beings, and Patanjali describes the eventual achievement of a human life. But as humans, of course, we need the pretext of effort in order to have one more anchor to continue to be, to have the feeling to be a separate human being. So as long as you need this anchor, keep it. But you have to realize that it is a new form, a new jail. It's a new form of prison. And something will happen that one day, if life is good enough with you, you will realize that all efforts you make are only ways to get away from what you are really. What you are really is right here, right now, already, what you are. And there is no need to make any effort.
Okay. I just have a follow-up question to you, Francois. So, wouldn't be the Abhyāsa the continuous effort, or how would you describe the define the Abhyāsa?
Abhyāsa is defined by Patanjali as an effort towards sthiti, towards stability. If you look around, you don't need to reboot. Everything is in a state of flow and of change. So where will you find stability? When everything changes. So the effort to find stability must bring you to the quest of what is stable. And what is stable, you cannot find it outside. So you have to look if something within is stable. Then you start the real journey.
Thank you. Thank you. Very interesting. I have another question for you, just to follow up on what has been said. So we have talked about Vairagya as a detachment, in any way, non-detachment, de-attachment, but can we actually define what is the glue that attaches? The glue. What glues or attaches the I have the trouble of saying object and subject and object, or yeah. So what is the glue that is? Are we? What? If we are detaching ourselves, what is the glue that has to be deglued?
Before I go into that, just a remark on what François has been saying now. I'm listening to yoga philosophy, which is sounding more and more like Vedanta philosophy. Usually when we contrast Vedanta and yoga, yoga is, at least it's projected as a manual. You do this and you get this result. And Vedanta is projected as, here's the truth, just a description. More and more maturity we get, we see it's just a description of reality as it is. The second thing which you just said now, that practice is to stay there. Tatra sthito yatna abhyāsa. So practice is to stabilize, or to stay what is stable. Usually we translate it in the context of Yoga Sutra as trying to stabilize meditation. But you have given a deeper, and I think a more Vedantic interpretation, that there is that ultimate reality which is not outside, not in the body, not even in the mind. That is the one thing that is truly stable. And when you realize that, the true nature of things, that is real Abhyāsa then. Yeah, so anyway, the glue is, philosophically speaking, the glue is ignorance. Everybody will immediately say that. But practically, I think it's wise why great sages, whether it's Patanjali or Buddha and others, they say desire is the glue. Desire is the glue that binds us. And Vairāgya is the degluing process. Let me put it in the framework of the 4 goals of human life. So in Hinduism, we talk about pleasure, kama. We talk about wealth or success or achievement, artha. And ethical, moral life, dharma. And moksha, freedom, spiritual liberation. So when we say those first 3 are no longer our goals, moksha is the goal, that is Vairāgya. That giving up those first 3 goals, they may still be there in your life, but that is not your primary driver anymore. Then you have Vairāgya, the degluing.
Okay, but still the question is, what is the glue?
The glue is desire. The glue is at its core ignorance of our real nature.
Yes.
I knew François would agree. But that is a very deep philosophical way of putting it. Practically in our life, what is that which binds us? It is our attachment, it is our desire. That's why Vairāgya hits there practically. It's like an axe taken to the glue itself, the stickiness. Yes.
Okay.
Let me put it in Vivekananda's very beautiful poem, The Song of the Sannyasi. He says, thine only is the hand that holds the rope that drags thee on. Then let go thy hold, sannyasi bold. Say Om Tat Sat Om. So we are holding on. In a deep sense, we are the glue. Out of our ignorance, we are holding on to samsara. Samsara is not holding on to us. Samsara, by literal definition, is continuously flowing, it's continuously moving. It's our ignorance we think that we can hold on. That ignorance, that attachment, that holding on, that's the glue. And Vairāgya is the degluing, letting go.
So can we separate the desire and a specific desire that is hanged with the object? Hang to the object. Are there different desires? Because we want to eat, we want to see our relatives, we are driven by sexual desires, intellectual desires. So
all that is fine, but if I think that is what is going to fulfill me, that is my primary goal in life, even if I don't state it, I am so deeply driven there. Otherwise, food for the preservation of the body, it will not be counted as a desire. Food and drink and air, a little shelter, a little education and health in society and all of that, that's perfectly all right. But when it becomes the overriding goal, I deeply feel that this is somehow which will fulfill me, which will complete me. Then it becomes, then sometimes pleasure is the desire, kama. Sometimes money, power, success is the desire. There are deep driving forces. That is what binds us. And that comes from thinking that we are not complete, feeling that we are not complete, feeling that we are small, and therefore something in the world will complete me. And then we try to grasp things in the world. None of it ever completes me. Only our true infinite nature, it's already complete, and that realization will set us free.
Can we say that the grasping is the problem and not the desire?
The grasping comes from the desire. The desire comes from the ignorance of our true nature. Even after enlightenment, you see enlightened beings, they still eat, they sleep, they walk, they talk, they go on pilgrimages or vacations. But at the same time, from their inner perspective, they are utterly detached from it all. In the sense that it is perfectly all right, all the time for them. I mean, what is the perfect time of their lives? Right now. Who are the best people in their lives? The ones they are with. Everywhere, with everybody, in every circumstance, they are fine. And that comes from Vairāgya.
Thank you. Martin?
From the point of view of the Yoga Sutra, I would say that the glue is the 5 kleshas, the 5 sources of suffering that bind the consciousness to this limited form. And it sort of like builds up on what you, Swami, said about ignorance, because the first klesha is avidya, or ignorance of our true nature. And that is followed by a very strong glue called asmita, or identity, false sense of self. And from this spring raga, or desire, dvesa, or aversion, and abhinivesa, or clinging to life. And I think this is a big package of very strong glue that we need to work on. And I think when we work on it through Vairāgya, it's a never-ending field of work. I don't think any one of us can be free of all of them, at least not very easily.
Thank you, Martin. Lisa.
Yeah. See, when we speak about the glue, the question is, the ultimate question is, for whom is the glue? So the ahamkara is coming here, which is the individualized consciousness plus the personality traits, because all the desirables of the world without or within, if there is no one to appropriate it, it's my desire, because I see some opportunity to have some nice thing or some goodies, as François is telling. Then, okay, who is there to have absence of Vairāgya?
Well, if we're talking about Vairāgya, then there should be someone.
Exactly, and this is the ahamkara. Now, again, if you think about ahamkara, you know, all the 5 koshas which we use in yoga, they are all just, so to say, applications which enable us to acquire, process, evaluate, and decide. So the ahamkara is either identifying itself or not identifying itself. And the special position would be the anandamaya kosha, which has very nice functions, but sometimes very difficult functions. But I think the key question is what, how to say, whether we are, when we say the asmita, then immediately we also have to consider the ahamkara. That means that we feel to be an individual which either identifies or disidentifies or just lets things flow, but it's still he or her experiencing this process. When this is put on a standby position, for example, the greatest goal, as Swamiji said, is fulfilled, then there is no longer the function of the ahamkara as before. So therefore there is no way how the attachment can occur, even though that person, as again Swamiji said, that person eats, speaks, even seems to be sleeping. What is our perspective? So without the ahamkara, there can be no opposite of Vairāgya or the Vairāgya itself.
So the contents of the glue is ahamkara.
I will be brief. The glue and the absence of glue, for me, comes, the absence of glue comes when you are fed up with me, mine, myself.
So should the practitioner, take those words out of his language?
Taking it out of the language will not make the feeling disappear. So how do you solve something you don't know? So you first have to look what is me, what is mine, and so on. It is through looking at the reality, so-called reality, which is a fiction of me, mine, and so on, that you come to understand the stupidity of such a way of living. And then you are free.
And you see, now the question comes, the big questions of it, who am I?
Okay, we're slowly shifting into the second stage where you could ask each other questions. So, would you like to ask each other questions or comment on something that has been said, although we already had some references to each other? So I will continue just so that you have the time to switch, so to say. Please, you can ask each other question anytime you want. Or Swami?
Should I? I know, to my surprise and delight, I discovered that at least two here, Matti and Geza, both have deep connections with the tradition that I represent, the Ramakrishna Vivekananda tradition. Matti has actually translated Raja Yoga and other works also into Finnish.
Raja Yoga.
Raja Yoga into Finnish, which is, Raja Yoga is Swami Vivekananda's classic translation of the Patanjali Yoga Sutras into English, and with some initial lectures on meditation on Raja Yoga. And it was his first book. It was translated and published in New York. And Geza has a very intimate connection with our tradition, with some of the most senior monks long before my time. He knows many of them, and he has visited our main monasteries and all. Since the discussion, at least my angle is that Vedanta and yoga, that's what I'll be discussing in the next 3 days. It's very interesting to me, and I'd like to put the question to you, Matti, especially, and to Geza also. Why do you think Swami Vivekananda, being centrally a Vedantic, a non-dualist, but the first book that he chose to translate and publish in the West is a book on Patanjali's Yoga Sutras? Why that? Why not a Vedanta book?
Yeah, and that's also the first modern translation and commentary on the Yoga Sutra, so that's makes it even more interesting. I hope you could answer that, but I think one reason could be come from this historical context, that Swami Vivekananda wanted to make yoga accepted and well known in the West, and the Yoga Sutra was already renowned and gaining acceptance among researchers. So maybe that was the reason, that it sort of seemed to be an accessible and respected book.
Yeah. Okay.
My view is, I think it is for a society or a culture which is not really oriented towards Advaita Vedanta, and where these radical ideas are not really embedded in the given culture, then it's far easier to start with something which seems to be doable. That means there is a description of the process, even though very, well, the commentaries, the Abhyāsa's commentaries and so on, make it more clear. So, what to do? What is the result? So for a European, or a Westerner, it is a very basic need. Okay, what should I do? And if I do it correctly, what will be the result? Even though it is very elusive, because from the previous discussion we could see that it's easy to speak about it, as François is telling, that if you just adjust your vocabulary, that's nice, but that's not really the result. So then, step by step, you come closer and closer to the unimaginably simple but very seemingly difficult process of Vairāgya proper. But if you start very high, then you will be just put away as something which I cannot really integrate into my worldview. And so I think that Yoga Sutra seemed to have been a more practical approach and more easy to monitor your progress, because you seem to have a very nicely sketched out process. Now, you know, even with the Yoga Sutra, when the hand of the researcher is touching a classical document like the Yoga Sutra, immediately say, oh, this is the old part. This is a newer part. This is taken from Buddhism. So it is not as we thought, but it doesn't matter. Is it practicable? Yes. Do we all try to follow it? Yes. Can we expect that sometime we comprehend this incomprehensible thing called Advaita Vedanta? Yes. And this hope is something which is very important. So I think this is why he touched first the Yoga Sutra.
Well, actually, Yoga Sutra is not the easiest text to translate, and it's not the easiest text to read. Yeah, so this is also a very interesting point that you made.
Yeah.
Because some Vedantic texts are easier to comprehend.
Right.
I actually want to follow up on this trajection that that Swami has brought up. And I actually had this question, and now as you're bringing it up, the relationship between Vedanta, Yoga, Buddhism, and all the different Indian traditions. When we talk about, like in modern day, you could have Buddhist practices, but in a secular way, they would just put out for people who are not Buddhists, and they would go and do these practices. Or you could have somebody who is doing yoga going to a tradition like Vedanta or also Buddhism, or vice versa. So although every tradition has its own very specific worldview, yeah, like in Buddhism we don't have Atman. So if you come from Buddhism to yoga, there should be some kind of inconsistency in the worldview. But in the modern day world, we have these shiftings of the practitioners from one tradition to another without, although being a part of a very specific worldview. So what do you think on that? Does the practitioner has to be aware of the difference between his alma mater and the tradition that he is taking the practices from? Or is, as Geza has said, well, I know your position on this, so it doesn't matter, but should he be like, if it works, it works, and that's it?
You wanted to say something? Yes.
I may come back to the question about Vivekananda translating Yoga Sutra first.
Yes.
I think Vivekananda must have been aware of the very poor state of understanding of Westerners about spiritual matters, because in our countries, very few people have been taught in a way that helped them to understand the unity of things. And in yoga, if he had taught, for instance, Yoga Sutra to somebody like Schopenhauer or Schrödinger, he would not have been very well accepted, because Schrödinger, who is one of the quantic physicians, had the understanding that if consciousness exists, then can be only one consciousness. But for most people, if you tell them there is only one consciousness, they don't understand. So in the Yoga Sutra, it seems to be one sutra that speaks about the plurality of consciousnesses. So it fits better with the Western conditioning, religious conditioning. Maybe he knew that, I don't know, because I have not met Mr. Vivekananda. I was not yet born. And I don't know if you can know somebody through written books or anything. So, now, what is the next question?
The question about the shifting between the worldviews and traditions.
Well, for me, traditions are clubs. That means they are means to continue their identification on a more refined level than the football club. But I think we have to be free of all clubs. So whether you go to a Buddhist or a Hindu or a yogi, it doesn't matter. What matters is the flame that burns within you to see the truth. And if you gave importance to labels, you are done. It's finished.
Well,
you can beat me, huh?
Actually, if you go to a Buddhist tradition, you're finished because there is nothing there, you know. If you go to a Vedantic tradition, you're finished because everything is already
Buddhism, there is the not born, the unborn, which is different from the Atman, but which is very much the same as the ultimate truth in Vedanta. So you cannot say that, no. It's only the misunderstanding of most Buddhists, but not the truth of the Buddha himself.
You want to say? Okay, taking this to a little bit more practical level, I think of these metaphysics that inform different kinds of practices and traditions, first and foremost, tools. They are very important for the practice, but I don't see any point in this kind of competition or arguing that my metaphysics is better than yours. But having said that, I think that for each individual practitioner, it's really important to understand the metaphysics that inform their practice, because it helps them to understand where am I actually going with this practice? What is the ultimate goal? What I'm trying to realize? What am I trying to achieve? If we don't have an idea of the metaphysics behind our practice, then we eventually find ourselves in the situation that we have to ask ourselves, why am I actually doing this that I'm doing? And if we come back to this Vairāgya, at some point we have to ask, okay, do I need to detach myself from this also, and this, and this? Like how deep does this detachment go? And that's where the metaphysics comes in. So in that sense, I think it's necessary. It's like a compass that we need.
I would also add a few points. The reason why I'm saying this, for example, if we talk about Trishna and practice against it in Buddhism, or Vairāgya in Buddhism, and there will be different metaphysics and different interpretation. If there is no Atman, then it's a different Vairāgya than when we talk about Vairāgya in yoga, and there is Atman, something like an Atman. And if we come from this worldview, and we use this practice, we will be achieving different goals, and it will be different, we will feel different, it will be a different existencia, it will be a different state, or it will be a different practice, actually. Mm-hmm. That's why I ask this. When people out from, like, not Buddhist and go to Buddhist practice, should they know about the metaphysics, the worldview, the philosophy of this tradition, to understand what they are really doing in the practice? That's maybe...
May I ask you a question?
Sure.
For you, Atman, is it personal, like the sense of me, the body I believe to be, or is Atman something not personal, like the image you give in India about a small flame of the big fire? that wants to come back to the fire, but there is no difference between the little flame and the big flame, the big fire. So what is your feeling about that?
Well, in my case, Atman is a very deep, sacred feeling of connection with a bigger sacred world.
Okay.
I'm sorry to ask you now.
Oh, I'm getting back. Oh, okay.
Because you see, if you see the dichotomy of Atman there, Atman within, so then you are again trying to join something which is already joined. Because in fact there is no others, no you as a specific individual. It seems to be duty avidya. But you see, the major problem is that if you follow a larger scheme, for example, the cultural shifts in humanity as such, through the history, you see that if in the medieval times in Europe, you would have liked to expose something like Advaita, something like Master Eckhart tried to do. Well, he was fortunate to die before he was sentenced. So that would be impossible to get through. So it would be, I think, very risky, and you would have to keep it secret, because otherwise the society was not prepared for that. Now, presently, we live in such a liberal society that whatever you tell people, they think, oh, well, why not? It may be possible. Yes, we can adjust somehow. Yes. So there is no direct expulsion. No, that cannot be. So even physicists now, they start to meditate, start to consider that, oh, there is some link between this Far Eastern philosophy and what we are actually examining. So then people who are just as we are, if we would have been born in the medieval times, I'm sure we would not carry the message of the yoga, because we would be suppressed. We would not be understood. I think before we could communicate it to the other, we would be hanged or put to the fire or whatever. So we are extremely fortunate that we are living at a time that it doesn't really matter if Russia says all its labeling is...
Could you say that when the Russian was still in Slovakia?
Of
or
course.
the communist...
We did practice yoga, of course.
Yeah, but openly?
Since 1972, yes.
All right.
Before 1972, we had to do
You
it.
couldn't.
We could, but secretly.
Secretly?
Well, I can tell you from the point of view of the Soviet Union.
Yeah.
In Ukraine, we had, I've studied this question very in detail. We had periods when yoga was forbidden and periods when it wasn't. And I read your latest article on the history of yoga in Slovakia, and you make it broader, like Hungary and Czechoslovakia. But in Ukraine, it was the Soviet Union, I would call it then this way. I think it was connected to the relationship between Soviet Union and India. So when we had a warm relationship, yoga was okay. When we had some problems, yoga was forbidden. And you can see it in the articles. I mean, it's criminal offense. It was a criminal offense. You could go to jail for 15 years just to have a book, like a written notebook with some text, comments on yogic concepts, I would say. In the articles there would be a strong propaganda. So you would I have these wonderful articles where it says, if you do yoga, you will die from this, you will die from that, you will twist yourself, and you will get sick. And then 10 years later, they make movies, they have articles, and so on and so on. But actually, we're shifting a little bit to another topic.
Just the last one. We had as a guest in the 1980s the Soviet yogi #1. He visited our city. So, it must have been, but he was talking about different cultures, so they either gathered at the rooftops or they did
actually
basements.
in the 80s it was a warm-up, so called, and it was easier to do that, although nobody would call themselves yogis, and they would call themselves physical education club or I don't know, taking cold shower club or something like that.
May I ask Swamiji the same question about Atman, your feeling about Atman? Is there anything personal in the Atman, like carrying vasanas and samskaras as you were speaking this afternoon? Or is Atman free of any personal characteristic?
So the Atman in its real nature is completely impersonal, but it also explains all personalities. Why we have person and personalities and variety and difference, vasanas, life after life, all of that is also explained because of the Atman. But the Atman by itself is impersonal. It is, and Advaita is pretty straight on that. It is bare existence, bare awareness, Satchidananda existence, consciousness place, which is utterly impersonal.
Because I feel here in the West, most people believe through yoga or through Vedanta or anything of that kind, that there will be a subtle continuity of themselves. And I think that is one of the points we have to understand. We ourselves are nothing but something that has to disappear, preferably before dying. Do you agree with that?
Even in yoga, the yogic conception of the Purusha is actually impersonal. There is no trace of personality left there. And it's a good thing. Swami Vivekananda had to face this again and again. But people would say, yes, but I want immortality as an individual, not in your impersonal sense. And he would make fun of it. Individual, you are not individuals yet. Which individual do you want to be? Do you want to remain as an immortal baby, immortal teenager, immortal old person? Which individual? We are continuous. Individuality is a construct, continuously changing. So the spiritual reality is the reality. And that has to be realized.
Thank you.
And if I can continue, that's a beautiful point. And this makes me remember a point I've sometimes made regarding this, that actually, if you really face the question like honestly, at least I have felt like it most of my life, that enlightenment is the last thing I want, because my personality just cannot want it.
Yes.
What do you think about this idea?
Oh, we all want enlightenment until we come to it. Because I know of cases, we have read about it, I know personally also, great fear comes. And when it becomes an actual possibility right now, there is something in the mind or in the subconscious which reacts with a primal fear. Now it is actually not your fear. It is the fear which lies in the mind or in the subconscious or in the sentient being, the limited being. And that fears losing its existence. It will not lose its existence. To give an example, the raindrop does not lose its existence when it falls into the ocean. It becomes the ocean.
Yeah, so this would be the Abhyāsa of
Yes.
the 5 places here.
Right.
Actually, when we talk about fear, we can come back from the fear to Vairāgya. I think it's in 100 verses of Bhartrhari, where he talks about fear, and he says that Vairāgya can help against the fear in one of these verses. But when we talk about fear, it's actually an emotion. Yeah, and I want to bring the emotions onto the table, so to say, because so far we have been talking. We've touched emotions only when we talked about the desires, but these emotions, and actually we can say that Vairāgya is deep emotion, deep passion, yeah, because raga be translated as a passion. So can we actually say that the Vairāgya is a practice, that a psychological practice?
Emotions, it's interesting that in the Upanishadic worldview, fear is the primal emotion, not even desire. More primal than desire is fear. When I think Janaka becomes enlightened, his guru tells him, he doesn't say you have become enlightened. He says, congratulations, you have achieved fearlessness. You have gone beyond fear. So, and this fear comes, from an Advaitic perspective, this fear comes from limitation, from seeing separation. One of the Upanishads says, whoever sees an other, for that one there is fear. Fear enters for the first time. Desire comes after fear. Even desire is a way of coping with fear. Yeah.
Thank you.
I think you see that, again, we are faced with a model situation where we imagine how it would be when we would have to, so to say, lose our individuality as such, all the memories, all the network of various relations to things and the living beings. And then comes this step, it's a big step, and you say that would be the last thing to desire. In a way, yes, but in a way, I think this fear of losing what you know and give up yourself for what you do not know and cannot know, that's the big step. But is it difficult? Swamiji, is it difficult?
And let me give you a story which I just remembered. I saw these two persons myself. I can take the names because both have passed away now. One was one of the greatest scholars of both Indian and Western philosophy I knew, Professor J.N. Mohanty. He was a master of Indian philosophy, Vedanta, Nyaya, but also he came to Germany and studied phenomenology, Husserl, in just after the Second World War, which was a very courageous thing to do at that time. In his old age, one day he said to me, he had got a minor stroke, and which became worse after some time. He said, once after a meeting, we are having tea. He said, not Swami, I was a novice in white dress at that time. He said, after the stroke, I can't think so sharply anymore, and I can't grasp so fast anymore, and I'm feeling more and more depressed. It's like a multimillionaire, like a stock market crash, you lose all your earnings. So like a great scholar, all your sharpness in it, slowly you can see it going. So that is one case. Similar case I saw, a monk, he has also passed away now. He was one of the greatest teachers we had in our order, but unknown to the public. Swami Mokshadananda. You mentioned Manonasha and all that. Jivan Mukti Viveka, this is a text. He's the one who translated it. I used to go to him for all with Vedantic questions. But in his old age, exactly the same thing. One day I went to him. He was sick just a few months before he died. He was in the bed. I asked him a question. And he thought, and he thought, and he thought. And then he said, I can't remember anymore. And then he said, with his characteristic smile and a twinkle in his eyes, let it go, its task is done. So now, you see these two contrasting things, where I am deeply identified. I have the same knowledge, but I'm identified with the mind and intellect and the ego and the knowledge. And that's all that I really feel is real. And when it's deteriorating, when it's falling apart, health, mind, I feel scared. I feel depression. I feel deep. I can't fight it. It's deep unhappiness. And this other person who clearly sees that this is equipment. It is running down now, like an old car. It's fine. I am fine. And so he says, let it go. Its task is done. Its work is done. Yeah.
Thank you for these nice two examples. But in practice, do you think that you can cross this, to say, big gap between your personality life as you know, and the one which you do not know? Or do you need some help from someone who has already crossed?
Oh, we definitely need help from masters, from teachers, from texts, from traditions. But every night we cross it. When we fall asleep, the world goes away, our body goes away from our phenomenological experience. Our mind disappears. All our memories disappear, and we have no idea whether they're going to come back again. And we happily go into it. In fact, if we don't go into it, we take the sleeping pill to get rid of everything. Now, Vedanta will say, where do you get that confidence? Because there is something deep within us which knows that we are none of this. It is nothing to us. It's like a speck of dust which we can knock off from ourselves. The body, mind, our so-called life, our whole personality, we confidently let it go. Our whole world, we confidently let it go every night.
But do we really? If I fall asleep, I dream dreams that emotionally fulfilled, which are connected to people around me, which are connected to people that I'm connected to emotionally. Maybe, depending on the person. Maybe some people wake up in horror. Do I really let go when I go asleep?
But we also have dreamless sleep, where even the mind is gone. No dreams, no personality, no myself, no others. And that is seen as the deepest rest. We are most happy to go into it and come out of it. Somehow we are confident that what is true and essential about us is not touched when the body is gone and the mind is gone. Now it seems scary because the mind is scared of it. But something deeper than the mind is there within us, our real nature, which is not scared of deep sleep. We go into it happily. In fact, the mind would go mad if it did not get deep sleep.
And I think there is also a very nice, very nice point to make that, traditionally Anandamaya Kosha is opening the gateway to the Satchitananda. And this is why we are able to live, because we have a constant but unnoticed connection to this, and in the deep, dreamless sleep, we merge into this. So if you are waking up from this sleep, you don't know where are you, who are you, why am I here, and suddenly the window starts on and you see, yes, now I know where I am. So this is, without this support, I think we would not be really able to live.
I just want to bring one more point, actually, to the borders of, I think, of the discourse we are bringing up here. If we talk about the tantric position, where we would say, okay, we don't have to do the vairagya, we have to accept, we have to live through, we have to be fully present with all our emotions, with all our desires also. And actually we can also bring many examples when somebody wants something strongly, they try to say, okay, I won't do it, and that connects them to this world even more than if they would leave it through and let it go. Yeah? And I have a question for Swami actually. How would you respond to that?
One good way is to see three traditions in Buddhism. So the Theravada monastic tradition, the Mahayana schools, and the Vajrayana Tibetan Buddhist tantric schools. How do you deal with negativities in each of them? So it's three paradigms, three different ways. One is anger, greed, lust, hatred, pettiness, selfishness, jealousy. Just stay away from it. So, like a monk does. You do not marry, you do not have possessions, you do not hold a job or property, you do not get into any clash with anybody, you're carefully guarding your emotions. So that is one way of dealing with it. That is one paradigm. Stay away. Carefully, just cut away those things from your life. Then you have the development of the Mahayana schools, which are predominantly householders. You cannot stay away from family, husband, wife. You cannot stay away from money and property and society. So there the emphasis becomes on skillful means. So replace the negativities with the positivities. You replace anger with forgiveness. You replace greed with contentment. Yoga Sutra talks about contrary tendencies, pratipaksha bhavana. So develop the positive virtues in you which help you to navigate life without being, without sinking into it. That's the Mahayana schools. The tantric insight, as you said, which is predominant in some of the Tibetan schools, is that these are very powerful. Some of the most powerful energies that we have got is anger, greed, lust, jealousy, hatred. Now, instead of suppressing them, getting rid of them, or converting them, can you ride those energies to enlightenment? So Tantra has a way of using those energies. Sri Ramakrishna, one of his monastic disciples, Swami Turiyananda, he said, young boy, so he said, I'm going to be a monk, I cannot stand the company of women, I do not want to look at women. Then Sri Ramakrishna said, foolish boy, what are you saying? You see mother in all women. The way, he says, to overcome lust is to turn its direction towards God. If you must desire, if you must be greedy for God. If you must desire, be passionate about God. If you must be angry with God, that why are you not revealing yourself to me yet? So using those angers, those energies. The words he used was in Bengali, more piriyede, turn the direction. Instead of suppressing it or trying to change the energies. So three models. I think we can learn from the wisdom of each of those three models. Sometimes clearly staying away is good for us. People who trigger you, situations which are tempting or which anger you, or you stay away from that. Sometimes you have to deal with it, and so positive attitude is good. And sometimes if you have the correct techniques and the guru and the tradition, you might use those energies to power your spiritual development. But the tantric way, powerful but dangerous. It's well known in India that the reason why Tantra fell into disrepute, multiple reasons. One is you develop these siddhis very quickly. So people chase those. I have seen people chasing supernatural powers by using Tantra. Or quickly fall into immoral life. So these are well-known dangers.
Could you say that those three approaches could be seen as sort of like a ladder? That's one step is more advanced than the other.
It's what's called in academia doxography.
Yeah.
So the Tibetans certainly see it that way, but I don't think the Theravadins would see it that way.
Yeah.
And those on the bottom rows of the ladder they will reverse the ladder.
How do you think from the point of view of Vedanta?
Vedanta is at one period in its even now it's very monastic, so it is strong on renunciation, somewhat like the first rung of the ladder. That in the initial stages, at least one has to be have a strong sense of renunciation, of Vairāgya, and then in the later stages, the goal is always to see the divinity in everything, because the original texts definitely speak about the divinity in everything, even the things which one would normally renounce. They all have to be that non-dual reality. If that non-dual reality is the only reality, the very words non-dual means there's nothing else other than Brahman. So if that is true, then everything in this universe, even the things which we think are bad or immoral or not good, not spiritual, they are also in depth, they have to be of that spiritual nature. They have to be. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And maybe to finalize our roundtable, I want to ask a personal question. I can also participate to join and not to be a side of it. Do you have you achieved Vairāgya? Because depending on the definition of Vairāgya, this question will have different angles. Have you achieved Vairāgya? What are your accomplishments in this practice, if it's a practice, if it's a process? So personally, how do you perceive this practice? Difficult, easy, maybe some examples when you have reached Vairāgya, or have done Vairāgya. So what is your personal relation with Vairāgya?
In one sense, yes, because I'm wearing the uniform of Vairāgya, this color, but it is just a color. We have a saying in India, "O yogi, you have colored your cloth, but you forgot to color your mind." What a tragedy. That means you have dipped your cloth in the color, ochre color of renunciation, but have you dipped your mind in that color? So that is the real task. And that is very central to my path. And that's the path I'm walking on.
I think Vairāgya is a daily and constant practice with the 5 kleshas that are there all the time in every action I do and every encounter I have with this reality. But I would say that these years that I've spent practicing yoga in various ways have made me see how things inevitably change, and that has helped me to loosen my grip at times a bit. I would say that's my achievement.
Thank you. I haven't clearly stated my definition of Vairāgya, but I mostly define it through the raga, which is the coloring. We already mentioned that, and the coloring I see it as emotions, and for me Vairāgya is dealing with the emotions and deeply understanding them and its roots, its content. I would say that it's mostly my constant practice of researching this myself and this coloring of emotions that color the Atman.
I think it is a very necessary question, but if you live for maybe 83 years, then you actually start comprehending why is life as it is. So you start understanding that whatever is before you, it is there because it has a meaning, and if you try to find a solution or any action plan, then it should be with the understanding that it is not actually for you, but it is somehow part of the life. So this appropriation, so it's not something which should answer my needs or the needs which I can take as a property. Then Vairāgya is in a sort of, let's call it a flow, because you are always confronted with various things. You see something in the shop, you think, well, do I need it or not? Perhaps now I don't need it. But you return home and you remember, oh yes, now I would need it. So again you go back to the shop and say, yes, please give me this and plus this, because I forgot that I have to do something at home. So Vairāgya is something which should not go against the life as you live, within the circumstances you live. This is my understanding for myself. But you have to be open to admit that all life is not actually for you. The life is such that you are part of the life, and if you don't want to get for yourself various goodies or whatever which is just for you and not for the others, then Vairāgya suffers. Otherwise, you have to accept, as it was already said by more of the panel than myself, that this Vairāgya type of approach, even in yoga, you have suddenly, I very often hear some of the students that, oh, I saw such a wonderful bright light, it was so fantastic. And then I say, okay, what should I say? Is it you who experienced it? Then who is it who experienced it? Is it really vital for you? Then it's fine. If it encourages you, very nice. But try to see that it is not what you actually experience, but whether you are willing to confront the things that's not for you. You have to go beyond this concept of you, and whatever is available to you with your personality and vasanas and so on, with it, that you have to work. And this is what I'm trying to do, yes.
The question of accomplishment is a very unfortunate question. I would say, if I look straight into myself, I have accomplished nothing. And I'm glad of it.
No, but the question is more how you practice, because you even teach it.
My practice is just to be open to what happens here and now. So most of the time I am a gardener, and sometimes I am a teacher. And the thing that happened in the garden, or the thing that happened with people when I teach, is about the same kind of improvisation, but I don't know from where comes the improvisation. And just, when I say I, this body, mind, is only a vehicle for something that expresses itself through it. If there is accomplishment, it is not this body, it is not this self, it is that which flows through. But the body and the self, the mind, or the full self, the me, they have one task, is to remain as open as possible, like the Sufi says, like the nail, the flute, to be open so that something can flow through. And therefore you have to, for instance, the examples you gave about people at the moment of death, one clinging and the other letting go. I think you have to let go as soon as possible in your life. And I am very grateful to my mother, because she was a child, even when she was 80 years old, but she always told me one thing, my son, in life you have to do what you feel. And I think that is the most important teaching. You will do a lot of mistakes. It doesn't matter, because you have to learn from your mistakes. And this is what I feel was not an achievement, but a little bit the story of my life.
Thank you. Okay, I guess we will be finishing. I was promising the stage where we would ask questions from the audience, but I think this, usually it is very difficult to have a conversation between the speakers. And today I think we achieved this goal. It was a nice talk between ourselves. Now we have to be careful with this word, the self, but at least between the guests here, the teachers here. I'm happy that you joined us, and I hope you have experienced together what has been said, and you've seen different worldviews and a different approach to Vairāgya also. And I guess the questions could be asked at the classes of these teachers, either in the class or between the classes. Thank you very much for joining. Thank you very much to teachers.